Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna.
And together, we created the Cognomovement system. And we'd like to welcome you to the New Life Perspectives radio show,
where we're going to be sharing with you tools, tips, and ideas that are going to change your life.
Hello in UK Health Radio Land. I am Liz Larson. I can't even say my own last name, with New Life Perspectives radio show. And I'm here with my good friend,
Bill McKenna. And
our other good friend,
Cynthia Sue Larson.
Hey, Cynthia.
Hi, it's so good to see you guys and together too. I love it.
Yeah, Cynthia has fast become one of our favorite guests, and our audience absolutely loves her. So she's back again. And every time we talk to Cynthia, we learn the most amazing things. And her conversations are so incredible, mind expanding. Cynthia, would you just quickly introduce yourself to everybody who may not know who you are?
Yes, I'm the author of the book Quantum Jumps and Extraordinary Science. And I've also written books like Reality Shifts, High Energy Money, so forth. I also have a website, RealityShifters.com, which is the best way to find what I'm doing. Subscribe to my monthly newsletter that I've been publishing for over 20 years, all about these topics. So I've been following what you might now call the Mandela effect, or if people know about that, as well as these ideas of reality shifting and quantum jumping. And I've got a podcast, Living the Quantum Dream, and I'm also the president of a nonprofit, International Mandela Effect Conference. And we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're doing monthly live streams as well on YouTube.
Cynthia knows what she's talking about. This is not just made up stuff. Cynthia is a physicist. So she knows the physics of how all this actually works. But I will tell you from personal experience, one of her books changed my life. In the early on, I know I've shared this with you guys, she was one of the first books I secretly read, and it's so mind expanding, but it's simple. We can all understand it. You don't have to have a physics degree to understand this. And this is why Bill and I wanted to talk with you guys about this today, and Cynthia, in this way. We want to talk about timelines, so you can share with us that you, Bill, and I, we all work in them daily. We play in them, we use them for life change, we challenge them, like we really work in timelines, but not everybody knows what that is. And then there's this phenomenon of timeline fatigue, where those of us who are experiencing it, everybody are having fatigue. So should we start there, Bill, with?
Yes. Well, so, years ago, I probably couldn't have wrapped my mind hardly around, timeline. What is that? This stuff sounds like, you remember the movie Back to the Future, and they had all kinds of different things. The guy would go back in time and he needed to change reality and in the different timelines that they were experiencing. Well, the best way that I can kind of bring this into everyone's current, experience is to just notice if you're listening to this, you're on the planet Earth, you're a human here. This is a global show. And wherever you're at on the Earth, doesn't it feel like right around whatever it was, let's say March of 2020, last year, remember your life was going along, there were things happening, you were going along in your life. And then voila, it's as if a whole new reality started to emerge. For some of you, you might even say it was before that, like the craziness before the elections, right? That happened, at least domestically in the United States, but it obviously was witnessed around the world. But it seemed as if, like, the things that people are saying and doing don't seem to match my reality. like it's almost like people are making stuff up and then believing it to be the truth, or on all sides of anything, doesn't matter what side of the political fence you're on, it kind of appears that way to the opposite. And then
Yeah, it's exactly like you could be side by side with two people and they're in two different realities. That's what I've heard people say. It's like they're standing right next to me, but they're seeing things completely differently. So that's happening as well. And you might feel like my family has changed, my friends have changed. You might be noticing that as well. Sorry.
Yeah, well, yeah, there we go. Yeah. So I was just noticing, here it almost feels as if you entered into another dimension. Like
right.
you had a lifetime of experience, and then all of a sudden I'm in this dimension where there's food shortages, there's these ridiculous points of view on all sides. There's lockdowns and mandatory, got to do this, you can't do that, all these different things. This would be what I guess, in my perception, almost seems to be a global timeline shift. So anyway, what I guess is that it is more than global. It actually exists for us in our lives as well. It's and Cynthia, you're an expert at this. I'm just going to wind you up. Just let us tell us all about that, and tell us how it all works, and tell us what you're seeing currently.
Well, what you're describing is a global situation, of course, but each of us has an individual experience. So each of us has our own individual interpretation of what we observe, the news we take in, what people around us are saying, what we're hearing about. So it's a subjective experience. And I'm starting there on purpose because that to me is the nature of reality, that it is very individual, and which can start explaining how each of us we also work collectively, of course. So we're part of nations, we're part of the world, we're part of humanity. So we're sharing a large experience right now of what's going on around the world, with the weather, with politics, with health issues, all of these things. And each of us individually is on our own inner path. And I think a lot of us are turning inwards, but let's focus on the timelines. There's a lot that you brought up here. So timelines is the idea. And I love the way you presented it. You might just be going along with your everyday life one day. And then for a lot of people, March 2020 was the demarcation line where it went from life as it was before and now after. And this is a new thing for a lot of people who may not have experienced quantum jumps, reality shifts, timeline changes, or the Mandela effect as far as they know. So this could be the first experience of feeling like, wow, this is totally different. And that feeling is valuable. It's priceless, because that's where you might think of all of consciousness, whether you believe in God, the creator, or the cosmos, whatever your belief system might be. It is inviting us to take a look more closely at what's happening. It's really inviting us to wake up, to pay attention, to get involved, and instead of just blindly following orders or directions, but really to start asking questions. Because as we know from physics, physicist John Archibald Wheeler talked about a participatory universe where you can ask nature a question, nature always answers. So the questions we ask are important. The timelines thus become moment by moment decision points where we actually get involved with this conversation with nature, asking these questions. And based on how we really feel, our energy, body, ourself, and as you guys know, our consciousness is not simply in our head, it's spread out. It's beautifully, by design, intended to bring in our heart, our mind, our gut, everything together, hopefully aligned. But if it's not, we can have some bumpy roads when we navigate these timeline shifts. The timeline shift would be experiencing decision points where suddenly we're in what you might call a totally different reality. Maybe other people made the decision and now here we are, or it seems that way. Remember, each of us has the ability to ask nature questions. I love to ask, how good can it get? and then see what the answers really are to the questions we most wish to get answered.
Cynthia, would you tell a timeline shift story for people who've never heard of your books or heard you speak about this before? Would you tell one of your classics, or maybe a new one?
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to relate one that I've had that everybody can relate to. I'll start with just an easy one, an introductory one. So often I've noticed, and a lot of people notice that have reported to me in Reality Shifters, that sometimes when you're in a big hurry and you need to get somewhere, you don't have enough time to drive there. You look at your reliable timepiece, and it definitely shows you do not have enough time to traverse the distance that needs to be traveled. There's no way it's going to work. You know that in your head. Okay, but if you listen to your show, as I'm sure your listeners now know, just because it looks that way on your watch, your timepiece, and so forth, don't worry about it. Because if you need to get somewhere, you can get to a state of mind, a consciousness where you're already on time. So that's this is a timeline jump. It's really recognizing you can get there in less time. And that has happened for me so many times. It's just, but it's a reliable situation, although I don't like to depend on it, but you never know when you might need it. So what happens is I'll leave the house. I don't have enough time to get to an appointment, but I don't panic. It's like, okay, so this is happening. And I recommend that the listeners do that too. Just go into that beautiful expanded energy, grounded state, drive safely, of course. We always recommend people drive safely and attentively, and then just see what happens. What I do personally is I don't look at the timepiece during the drive. I keep it in that state of uncertainty on purpose, so that then when I arrive, then I look at the timepiece, check the time, and of course I'm there exactly on time, impossibly on time. There's no way that could have just happened, yet it did. And it's a very reliable thing. Happens a lot. And it used to be the most common reality shift that people would report to me back in the 1999, around 2000. That was one of the top experiences.
I think Bill actually shared that technique at one point. If you look back in our archives, you may be able to find that one. I'll share one that Bill and I just experienced we had a retreat in Mount Shasta. Now, weird things happen in Mount Shasta, but we had a woman there who had expressed some problems with her mom and, misunderstanding and not seeing eye to eye. We worked on clearing that out of her system, and in our work, we changed timelines by moving the cause that's generating that particular timeline or that particular situation. That's a better word for it, maybe, right? In your life. So we did that. She came back. I don't know, it must have been just a few minutes after the session ended, and she had an email in her email box with the mother apologizing and seeing her point of view and really acknowledging the situation where her whole life had been this situation. And in a snap of a finger, it all shifted. And it was very interesting because you could kind of see the look on her face like, how in the world did that happen? You arrive in a new place. It's almost like a new world.
Yeah, exactly. And so these are the timelines we're talking about that I think people that may never have experienced timelines are now getting a taste of it. That's what's so interesting in this last year and a half, is this is becoming a worldwide experience, to the point that the young people are talking about reality shifts. Often they're talking about going into an alternate reality that's imaginary. I think that's escapism at work. I'm not putting it down. It's totally understandable. But it's also doable to actually envision that you can have another reality like the one you're talking about, and people can definitely move into it as well.
This is one that she wasn't even focused on it necessarily. It was a side effect of clearing the constant feeling of the negative timeline that she had out of her body. So it was a spontaneous one. But does this take energy? Does it cost energy? Why is this creating what we are kind of coining as timeline fatigue? What does it have to do with energy?
Okay, that's a great question. It does require energy, and the energy that it requires, the good news is it's universal energy that's always available to us. And typically what's happening with any illness or ailment or problem is that we're blocking the receipt of that energy for some reason or reasons. So the fatigue that you're mentioning is really interesting, because a lot of the light workers are noticing they're feeling tired, they're feeling kind of worn down, like they can't quite. And these are people that are familiar with accessing universal energy. So for them to feel tired and worn down, something's going on. And one of the things that's going on is in International Mandela Effect Conference, IMEC, our Vice President, Christopher Anatra, talks about a hairball of timelines. And then our founder, Jerry Hicks, also talks about smeared out timelines. And so it's that feeling like, what's going on? There are all these choices. And it's not that we're conscious of them. Love that example and I love that way of quantum jumping. It's my favorite. First, clear yourself. And when you're good, then whatever you experience, that's going to be awesome. And you get to see all sorts of amazing things. But right now, with so many possible timeline possibilities, these many it's smeared out like quantum. If you're getting to the quantum physics part of it, then you can look at how all of for example, a photon could be either considered as particular form or as a smeared out spread of probability wave functions. So that smearing out of the wave function is the concept here. And all those timelines become kind of like a big blur, like what is here. And if you try to grab onto them, if you're consciously trying to choose, which we humans are conditioned to do when we're raised in a materialist kind of a mindset, that's what we grow up with typically. That's our tendency. We want to grab onto the timeline. I do not recommend that right now. And I love your example because she didn't do that either. She focused on clearing herself.
So one of the things I loved about what you just said was regarding timelines was you just talked a little bit a while ago about not looking at your watch, and that would lock in a reality. So yes. One of the ways that I look at this is like in definition of the third dimension is all about laws, rules, and regulations. They exist in the third dimension. And the clock, as far as time goes in the third dimension, is a rule. In the third dimension, it's linear time. So if I agree by looking at my watch and agreeing it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon to the rule, then there's rules. What are you going to do? But in the fourth dimension, the time becomes malleable. And so by not looking at the clock and setting the time that you had, you're kind of entering into that fourth dimension so that that malleability, not attaching to one reality, right? You allow that other reality to take place.
Right.
And expanding upon that, which you're so very good at. Cynthia's books and some of the interviews she's done is so amazing. I love the ones about money too. Yeah, I love the story about you looking in your wallet and for more money. And then it was like the loaves and the loaves and fishes example with her wallet actually happened. So anyway, we got to take a break real quick. We got a UK Health Radio announcement. We'll be right back.
Okay, thank you to the UK Health Radio Network. Before we go on, can I just say that Cynthia Sue Larson said timeline hairball. I think I need a t-shirt of that because that's really, it's like a timeline mingle. You can just see it, and that's what it feels like. And I just had a thought, a brain explosion. Bill, you're going to love this. And Cynthia, you can tell me if I'm on to something or not. In our work, when we do Cognomovement, we change the nervous system. We're changing the electricity between the brain and the body. What happens is there becomes a bit of a neurological overload. So the brain has to do a hard reset, just like your computer. You install something, you have to, the computer makes you do a hard reset. You delete something, So in our work, we'll see that as extreme exhaustion. The brain just cannot stay on, and the person will need to close their eyes, reset their brain, and start. So I'm curious, Cynthia, is it that we're doing this maybe 1,000 little times a day? The nervous system is picking up on it and just doesn't get the hard reset and makes us do it sooner. So maybe we're constantly having that feeling of, I just need to reset. I just need to reset. Could that be something?
That's possibly true. And in that case, it's really interesting, because what happens when we take these resets? It makes, what's happening to the nervous system when we sleep? I'm instantly going there like, wow, that's really cool and super interesting. Obviously, it's not just a reset. Often, we look at our things or metaphors such as the computer reset, and we think, oh, that's all it is. I invite everybody who's listening and thinking about this to go bigger, because reality is always going to be bigger than any metaphor we can come up with. So it's bigger than that. So when we're getting these opportunities to do a reset, it's not just for ourselves individually and with our own subjective reality, but it's also as we relate to the collective groups of reality that we belong to. We're resetting those relationships, which is a very quantum thing to do. And our brain does function in a quantum fashion. So that's been proven with people like Jerome Busemeyer with his wonderful book about quantum models of cognition and decision making. And this concept that it matters, like if you're filling out a form or a questionnaire, what is the order of the questions get asked? You change the order of the questions, you get different answers from the same person. So that's fascinating. And it means that these groups we belong to, they need resets, and we're resetting them too when we're sleeping. That's at least one part of the equation of what's happening with the reset. Fascinating stuff.
Oh my gosh, we had the most interesting aha moment. It's like, if you're following timelines, if you'll let yourself go to the next one, choose and go to the next one and see what happens next, the most amazing things happen. So I have this incredible client. He's just an amazing person. And he has all these projects out there in the world happening that are just like millions and millions of dollars, coming in and so creative. And all of a sudden he started to tell me about, he's making changes in himself, in himself, in the work we're doing together. And all of a sudden he started to tell me about the people in these groups. They're very diverse groups, different projects, whose lives are changing. Like one person received a car and diamonds from their neighbor out of the blue. Wow. So I love that you're talking about this, that it's not just us, that when we reset, when we change, our networks change. So Bill and I challenged each other, and we're putting it out to our practitioners to notice who else, when you make a change, who else in your network changes that may have nothing to do with you, but it has something to do with them. Right, Bill? Go ahead, Cynthia.
Oh, we're so much more connected than we often give ourselves credit for. But go ahead, Bill.
I was, one of the things that occurred to me is that our strong feelings, our strong thoughts and feelings, what they do is they lock in reality. They become a rule. This person is a bad guy. They're bad guy. And so I lock in reality of him being a bad guy or her or whatever. Or it could be about me or a situation, or it could be about global political things. I lock in a reality. And interestingly enough, literally with your hand, you can reach out into the field around you, the area that's like, if you extend out your arms, like, as if, they're all the way out to the left, right. And that's your field. And for most people, and you just reach out, where would it be if I my feeling about this person or this situation, where is it in my field around me? Literally, right? If you're watching the radio and you're not driving right now, you're in a safe situation, you literally could reach your hand out about some intense experience you're having, whatever it might be. And it's literally, you feel the air thicker in that area. It'll feel hot or cold or thicker, or some people we've even had people where they put their hand into it and it's like, the static electricity charge that like if you're walking on carpet, they'll put their hand in it, they get a little static electricity. So it's very, very real. And this reality, by the way, this is not woo-woo. This is science. We know from science now, the magnetoencephalography. There is a device that's not attached to your head that's like an EEG machine, and it measures every time you have a thought and feeling, it will actually creates a charge out in your field that they measure. These are several universities. You can look it up, MEG versus EEG. But we now know that this is absolutely true. The cool thing is that you could feel it today. There's many things you could do with it, but imagine for a second if that cloud was gone, kind of like Cynthia had mentioned a minute ago. That cloud for her could have been, it's 3 o'clock. Look at the watch. It's 3 o'clock and I'm late, and there's going to be consequences. But she did not engage by looking at the clock, which is a rule. And so it didn't form. That cloud didn't form in her field that you could actually feel. So other realities could present themselves. So anyway, sorry, this is so fascinating. We're so happy to have you, Cynthia. Please, I want to hear from you on that subject.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I totally want to support what you're saying about locking in realities. And there's a physics that's known as the quantum Zeno effect about locking things in. So it's a true scientific phenomenon for people that want to look that one up. Quantum Zeno effect is the way that you can observe, so constantly observe something in a quantum state that you can lock it in place. And so this is amazing. And when you combine that concept with what you're describing, it starts to be easy to see the way a timeline could be accidentally selected. So you're surrounded with this hairball of timelines, and because of the emotional thing in your fields that you're reacting to that feels real, that you're energizing by matching that emotion, and now you've got this timeline that you don't want. There you are, but it doesn't need to be that way.
What is that called again? It's a quantum, for everybody to look it up. It's called in physics
quantum Zeno effect. And if you find it in the textbook definition, it will be describing any quantum system that can be locked in place due to frequency of observations. So you need your device or your system or whatever's doing the observation to be check. It's like you've got OCD. You're just like, but like you've got OCD, right? Like a lot of us do lock in to something we're worried about. We're afraid of it. We're locking it in. You don't want to do that. So if there's something you don't want, don't be doing that. Don't be check. Like, I know this is going to be happening. I know I'm late. Oh my gosh, now look what time it is. Oh my gosh. You really don't want to be that. Let's not participate in that timeline. And it is a choice.
Isn't that what people are doing when they're on the Facebook, on the Twitter, on the whatever, checking to make sure that catastrophe is still going, is still happening, like that.
I know. They call it doom scrolling is what it's called. It's got a name. It's so common. So many people are doing that. And I would highly recommend against that. Do not doom scroll.
If you're aware that you are locking that in place,
yes.
We know that it hits the nervous system a certain way. You get a feeling when that terrible belief system that the government's doing this, or the sickness is doing that, and it, and your friend sends you 5 of those, and it builds this feeling in the body, and the nervous system gets a hit of dopamine every time. And every time our brain gets that hit of dopamine, our body, we want more. So guys, everybody on the planet, if you're hearing our voice, stop it. Stop locking in this timeline. For those of us who are not doing that, for Bill and I, lots of times somebody will share with us something that's happening in the world, and we're like, oh, that's still happening. Or even we'll go out and see people wearing masks, and we're like, oh, that's still going on, because we're immersed in something else. all the time. We're immersed in the fun of changing the timelines, the fun of manifesting, changing bodies, changing lives. So we forget that's going on. So that's so interesting. That's that quantum Zeno effect. See, Cynthia teaches us something every time.
Love it. I love talking with you guys because you bring so much to it. It's such a smorgasbord.
Okay, so back to the fatigue. Cynthia, what do you tell people? Or are you telling people anything that they can do to combat the fatigue? Or are we going with the fatigue? What are you doing?
I usually start by pointing out that this was an expected moment in time, if you will, that this has been predicted. So I think that calms a lot of people down right from the get-go who might be panicking, like, this is horrible, look what's happening, yikes. And
Tell us about the prediction, because that's a very interesting thing. Tell us about that.
Okay, well, basically, I've participated in some conferences that used to be happening that were started by physicist David Bohm and with Leroy Little Bear, who's Harvard scholar, but also a Blackfoot Indian wisdom keeper. And so those two, in addition to some linguists and other scientists and lots of other indigenous people from around the world would gather in dialogues. You've heard of, I don't know if you've heard of the Bohmian dialogue, but it's a way of staying in a neutral, centered position and listening, really going into a deep state of listening to let someone talk and talk and talk and talk, which could go on. Maybe, I mean, you can go get coffee, use the bathroom, come back, and that might still be the same person. But something amazing happens to the listeners because it's finally, it's like a bubble pops, and whatever your barrier and you're pushing away, like, yeah, that's their thing. And you get to a point where suddenly, oh, and it feels like what they're saying, you do not have their problems and their issues and their viewpoint, but suddenly it feels like you are in it. And that state of deep listening is incredible. So I'm describing the experience of the Language of Spirit conferences that I started participating in some time ago. And they are amazing. So as part of that community, I became keenly aware that the Hopis, for example, who talk about that we're entering the fifth world, that there will be 7 of them, that this happens sort of like clockwork, that humanity goes through a crisis. And this is not just the Hopi talking about it. It's not just their prophecy rock. This is a shared viewpoint from wisdom traditions around the world, every continent of the indigenous First Nation people around the entire planet have been expecting this. It has been something they've been talking about in advance, about the signs and what to look for. And now we're in it. So I do start there. I tell people, don't panic, like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic, because we're in something that was expected. So we showed up on time. We're here for a reason. You were born for these times. So that's where I start.
So do you, back to the fatigue thing, do you have a prescription, or what are you telling your clients how to deal with the constant change in timelines and the fatigue that comes with?
Listen to your own intuition and your own body. So even if it feels like you might need a nap when you normally never did, then take the nap. So really listen, going within more, trusting the feminine, accepting the yin side of ourselves that we often haven't really given that much respect to traditionally in our Western culture. But now I think people are really recognizing they need to do that more. And so listen to yourself, listen to that inner wisdom very closely, and stay grounded. Grounding is super important. Healers take it for granted that they stay grounded, but this is a strange time. And so even people that thought that they were grounded, or they always were before, they might need to do things like get out more in nature, go barefoot, things that they thought, I don't need that. Now maybe they do. And so it's the basics, really, getting grounded, opening your heart center, keeping connected to intuitive information and insight. Those are 3 checkpoints on the chakras, of course. So you've got your crown chakra, your heart, and your root chakra. So they're all extremely important. And this is fundamentals, yes, but I think this is the most important time. The other thing I recommend is don't fixate on what you think is the outcome. That's how to get yourself, it's like get nauseated on a fast moving ride to grab that one timeline. I'd recommend don't touch that. It's crazy. Just keep asking how good can it get? Keep it open-ended, work on yourself, and you'll be naturally attuned and aligned to your own groups and everything, because we're just moving at a phenomenal pace right now, as was predicted. So that's the good news. No mistake here. Things are not running amok. It's not a disaster. This happens.
Okay, fantastic answer. So many gems in that. Hold on, everybody. We have a little word from our sponsors and UK Health Radio Show. So we will be back in 1 minute. All right. Thank you to UK Health Radio Show. You were about to say something, Bill.
Oh, I just loved that Cynthia had brought forward all of the traditions, right? That indigenous traditions, and that the expectation of this change. And one of the things I had heard from the Hopi was the birth of the white buffalo, or the return of the white buffalo. And very strangely enough, several years back, there was this return of the white buffalo, like an albino buffalo was born. And the Hopi was like, oh, it's on. So, and sure enough, here we are, it's on. So what other predictions or signs, Cynthia, had you heard?
Another one is that animals or plants that have been long dead will be coming back, and we're seeing that as well. So it's something that we track on the International Mandela Effect Conference, that the Lazarus species, the ones that have been gone for thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, are suddenly back, like the silicon fish. These are these giant primordial, huge aquatic, deep water fish that had been known to be completely extinct. That was our wisdom, and they hadn't been seen for hundreds of years, and now they're back. And in fact, it's just mind-blowing to see that that's not the only species that's come back, but several have. And the scientists have that word Lazarus species, which means that it's such a common thing that even the scientists are naming it this, so that they can have a term to hang on what's going on when extinct animals come back. And it wasn't due to preservation efforts. That exists as well, of course, such as the white rhino and so forth, and the buffalo. Those are preservation efforts. But I'm talking about completely inexplicable things, like a Galapagos tortoise that had been known to be extinct, and it's back. And birds, just about anything can come back. So the Hopi did mention that. And if you think about a hairball of timelines and all of these possibilities coming back, of course that would make sense. That's not part of their prophecy, the hairball of timelines. That's what we're talking about.
Well, we can see him there. As well, what we got here. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love it.
Cynthia, that kind of explains a lot of things. I mean, all of it goes together. So, that's kind of a timeline shift, right? New animals or old animals coming back.
Yes.
Also a Mandela effect. Well, were they ever extinct in the first place? Maybe not, right?
Exactly.
It's all of those things together. And it feels a little mushy, our existence. A little bit like no solid boundaries anymore. And those of us who know how to benefit from this, we're having a great time. It's fun to shift your attention, shift your focus, get clear in the body, and move that direction. Have you had any recent experiences like that? Anything fun you want to share?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. It's once it becomes part of a normal expectation, then I'm sort of expecting that. Lots of things, like I'm just walking out the door and I'll meet the mailman or meet people on the porch when my doorbell doesn't work and I didn't know that there was someone on the porch. All sorts of things, but I take it for granted. Like, of course, that's happening. And also, just when I'm feeling well enough, I'm feeling so much better this last 2 weeks than I have in probably more than a year and a half. And suddenly lots of opportunities are coming to me, obviously, because I'm ready to take them on. No more problem with energy levels and so forth. So those are big ones for me personally, because they matter to me in my daily life, but they may not be a big deal to other people.
That is big. When you don't feel good, life, you don't have the energy to do things. There's
Right.
no motivation. There's no focus. You just don't feel good. You've got to be able to find a way to get that energy up. I just want to piggyback on something you said. I heard Mel Robbins an interview this morning, and it was funny because she was talking about these big manifesting, like you're sitting in your house and you don't have enough money for food, but you're trying to manifest a mansion. There's a disconnect, right? You can't get from there to here. So you were talking about little things like meeting somebody on the front porch. I really love that idea, and I always highly recommend it because you can manifest what's next, right? Do you want to be able to know when the doorbell's ringing before it rings, or who's calling on the phone? Or do you just want to manifest, your friend calling and taking you to lunch that day? What little fun thing could you focus your attention on, be fully clear in your body, and just play, see if it happens next?
And that's the key to life, right? It's the quality of life that we experience the joy in this moment, because all we ever have is this moment right now. And when that is off the hook, like talking to you guys right now, then it just makes everything special. And that's the ultimate riches, is these connections, these relationships. I can't really think, besides health, but aside from health, the connections, the relationships are everything to me.
Yeah. When we think about manifesting as some big thing that happens, some big bank account things, but really it's the littlest things in life. My husband changed my workout room around. It was one of my requests while I was on the retreat. He did that for me and it works amazing. It's such a great manifestation. Now, normally he would have taken a year to ever do it, but I was so just neutral about it. I thought, oh, that would be really good. I had the thought, boy, that would make sense if we just moved this and that. So much easier. And when I got back, he had done it. And I have thanked him every day. And you know what's been the best thing about it? Thanking him.
Aw,
Him.
I believe it. Yeah.
Hey, I used my room today. It's so good. Thank you. He loves it. So, the room is a great manifestation, but that joy of saying thank
Yes.
you. So guys, we are so close to the end here, but we always offer a little technique for people to take home. Do you have something people could use for timeline, or a way to adjust to timelines?
Yeah, let's, because we're talking about the fatigue and the timeline hairballs. Let's just do a meditation on that. Help just for a few minutes. Like, is that okay? Good. Okay. So I'm just going to start by just closing my eyes. And if you're not operating a heavy machinery, then you can join us. Otherwise, hold this for later. So we're just going to take a deep breath, just calming yourself, feeling yourself, your muscles relaxing, and breathing in and taking a nice, steady, deep breath in. Letting it fill your entire abdomen, just bring in as much air as you can comfortably, and then exhale, and just imagining that you're just letting out all the concerns, anything. We've talked about emotions, so any strong emotions, you can just let them go for right now. Any kinds of worry, we talked about worry, just let it go. Just letting it go for right now. We don't need it. You'll be fine. Let go of any kind of feeling of sadness or grief. We talked about that briefly. Let that go too. And if anything might trigger anger, let that go too. We're just going to release those strong feelings for right now, letting them dissipate and clear away. And feeling in place of those energies of emotion, just feeling what Liz just mentioned, beautiful gratitude, reverence, joy. feeling thankful. Don't need to worry about what you're thankful for. We're just recognizing this energy has a feeling to it. You can remember something that you once felt thankful for. Breathe it in. And on the exhale, letting go of all those emotions that we talked about that are strong ones. Right now, we don't need them. Okay, that's the framework. So every time you breathe in, you'll just breathe in love, kindness, compassion, thankfulness. And the exhale, just releasing those strong emotions, letting them go. And today we talked about timelines. So you might feel like there has been this sense of so much overwhelm, too much to deal with, but you don't need to live that way. We know that. And we can just acknowledge that we may be surrounded by lots of different timelines that all different people are putting out there. And right now what we're doing is being aware that even though there are all these timelines, we're just going to stay focused right here, right now, on ourselves, and feeling that we can become as clear and clean and emotionally calm and neutral and balanced, feeling kindness and love, feeling thankfulness, with the awareness that these are feelings we'd like to experience in daily life. And so instead of grabbing onto some timeline that looks like maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, we're not going to focus on that right now. We'll trust that we can rely on what we need to be ours, that we can trust nature to give us what we need. I like to focus on how good can it get for everybody, for each of us and everyone we love. And this then becomes a feeling of being connected with relationships to the earth, to nature, to plants and animals and each other. Just breathing that in. Now, when I breathe that in, I feel tremendous revitalization energy. And then just remember to stay grounded, releasing any temptation that we might have to grab onto some timeline. We're just going to stay fluid and flexible, resilient, and just in the groove. Doesn't matter what happens next. We're good with whatever. Then breathe in that beautiful feeling of gratitude and love, thankfulness. You might now get a sense that maybe there is a timeline that just feels like that's where we are for now. That's cool. So whichever timeline is resonating with you in the highest vibratory state that you're in, that'll be the right one. So when you're ready, you can open your eyes and feel a sense that it might feel exciting. I feel excited. I feel like there's a really good timeline that all of us together are bringing in. It feels amazing. And so I'm just feeling that. And I felt that before, thanks to being with Bill and Liz. So we can open our eyes together and recognize we are together always, even if it might not seem like we always share the same objective reality. It's okay.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you guys do too, because you are really making a big difference on the planet. And I can't even tell you how much I appreciate that. It's like, woo.
We're having so much fun. We're having so much fun doing it. It's been a blast. Cynthia, how do people get engaged with you? You have so much to offer. How can they get a contact with you? How can they engage with you? How can they get a session with you?
Yes. Okay. Check out my website, which is RealityShifters with an S at the end.com. And please sign up for my newsletter, because then you'll get all of what happened in the last month, which is always a lot more than I even remember happened in the last month. It's like, that happened. And so it's things like this interview today, events that are happening, things I'm doing, and so forth. There's always lots going on.
All
and
right.
my email is cynthia@realityshifters.com.
Awesome.
Again, you guys get out there and buy Cynthia's books. They will change your life if you have not heard of them yet. They're amazing. And we are just right up against that time. Thank you so much for being here, Bill Mckenna and Cynthia Sue Larson. And we will definitely have Cynthia back again, because we have so much more to talk about. That's it, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective radio show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.